Hey everybody, so this is day 2 after my memoir, My Time to Stand, has been released to bookstores and wherever books are sold. I am so proud to be holding this book right now. And whoever has read it already, I hope that you receive the message. This is not a true crime book. This is a book about survival and hardship and overcoming massive amounts of trauma.
I finished listening to the Gypsy Rose audiobook earlier today, and there was something that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but the best way that I can explain it is, have you ever seen the movie Chicago? In the opening credits, they show you this crime, and then later on in the movie, she gets a great lawyer, and he paints this beautiful song and dance that portrays her to be somebody very different than we actually have seen her to be. And she gets off scot-free.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard is a name synonymous with controversy, heartbreak, and now disillusionment. What started as a tragic case of Worsened by proxy, a story of survival and justice, has spiraled into something entirely different. Gypsy's latest actions, particularly through her memoir, My Time to Stand, has sparked outrage and disappointment. Let's break it all down chronologically, unravel the layers of this complex narrative, and examine how Gypsy's attempt to justify her past actions may have gone too far. Gypsy Rose Blanchard recently released her memoir, My Time to Stand, where she shared her version of events surrounding her life with her mother, Dee Blanchard. While the memoir claims to shed light on her struggles and survival, it has been widely criticized for its explicit content, disrespectful tone, and self-serving narrative. One of the most controversial aspects of the book is Gypsy's claim that her mother has forgiven her. She bases this on a coincidental event, her first sonogram appointment for the child she's expecting with her husband, Ken Acker, which happened to fall on Didi's 9th death anniversary. Gypsy wrote in her memoir, "I like to think that my mother is telling me that she wants me to move on with my life, that she forgives me. And what I will do on this anniversary is her way of helping me change the way I think of myself every June 10th. Maybe now, with my freedom, we can both be released from our purgatories. Maybe now she can be free too. She's always said we were two sides of the same penny."
The book was just as I expected. Okay, there were exaggerations of stories previously told. There were, new lies, or what I believe to be lies. And again, she lies and contradicts herself right in the same book, guys. Like from one chapter to the next, you can pick out the lies and the contradictions. And I'm just like, whoa, we're on chapter, 17 here, but didn't you read what you wrote in chapter 10? Because you just told a completely different story about the same thing. So you can call her out literally in the book.
While this might seem like a touching sentiment on the surface, it raises many questions about Gypsy's sincerity and her motives. For one, Didi's actual death anniversary isn't June 10th, but June 9th, the dead Gypsy and Nick Goshen carried out the murder. This discrepancy has led some to speculate that Gypsy is trying to rewrite history or romanticize her actions. Is this a genuine belief or a calculated move to manipulate public perception? Furthermore, Gypsy's history of vilifying her mother adds another layer of complexity to her claim of forgiveness. Throughout her memoir, Gypsy paints Didi as a manipulative and abusive figure, sharing deeply personal and often unverifiable stories that tarnish her mother's memory. For instance, Gypsy frequently highlights her mother's flaws and fabricates her own victimhood in ways that seem designed to elicit sympathy and justify her actions.
But it also sounds to me like, again, she is not taking accountability for what she did. It's almost like she's putting blame on Didi. Like, you're the reason that I had to do this. I don't find that acceptable. I really don't. I just feel like this is filled with lies. Like, when were you beat, Gypsy? You were at hospitals every day. You just said it in your letter. But yet there were never any marks on you. There was never any proof of it. Like, this letter that she supposedly wrote, and again, I don't believe she wrote this to her mother. I don't believe she wrote this at all. But this letter, there's just so many lies in it already that I'm concerned about the rest of the book. I can just imagine what's in there.
In this context, her suggestion that her mother has forgiven her feels less like a heartfelt reflection and more like a convenient narrative to absolve herself of guilt. The part of the memoir also draws criticism for its speculative nature. Forgiveness is not something that can be assumed or fabricated, especially when it involves someone who is no longer alive to offer it. Gypsy's choice to frame the sonogram coincidence as a sign from her mother has been called into question as an attempt to add a veneer of spirituality or poetic justice to a deeply troubling situation. Some readers see it as a manipulative tactic to shift focus away from her own actions and back onto the narrative of her being a victim striving for closure. Ultimately, this section of the memoir reveals more about Gypsy's mindset than it does about her mother's potential forgiveness. It underscores the length to which Gypsy is willing to go to maintain her narrative, even if it means distorting facts or making unverifiable claims.
Capable of planning and executing her crime, no pun intended. But at the same time wants us to believe that she just had no other choice. Like she wasn't capable of finding another way out. But you're capable of figuring out how to get more prescription painkillers. She's not too afraid to open her mouth and ask Nick to do what she asked him to do, but she was too afraid to open her mouth and tell the doctor, hey, I don't actually need exploratory throat surgery, which is the reason that she gives of her last straw, as it were, to why she felt the need to end her mother.
This raises the fundamental question: is Gypsy genuinely seeking redemption, or is she still trying to manipulate public perception to suit her needs? Before we dive deeper, let's revisit the backstory. Didi Blanchard was a complex figure, and understanding their dynamic requires peeling back the layers of deception, control, and survival. Didi subjected Gypsy to years of abuse through Worsened by proxy, a condition where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in someone under their care to gain attention and sympathy. From a young age, Gypsy was forced to live a life defined by lies. Didi shaved Gypsy's head to mimic chemotherapy patients, confined her to a wheelchair despite her ability to walk, and claimed she suffered from a host of ailments ranging from leukemia to muscular dystrophy. These fabrications not only kept Gypsy physically and emotionally imprisoned, but also made her entirely dependent on her mother. This abuse wasn't just about control, it was also about exploitation. Didi used Gypsy's fabricated illness to gain financial support from charities, free trips from organizations like Make-A-Wish, and even a new home built by Habitat for Community. Gypsy's life was a performance, and Didi was the director, ensuring that every aspect of their story garnered sympathy and resources. For Gypsy, this control extended to every facet of her life. She wasn't allowed to have friends, attend school, or make decisions about her own body. Even her diet was controlled, with Didi feeding her through a feeding tube and restricting her from eating solid foods despite no medical necessity. The psychological toll of this abuse was immense. Gypsy grew up believing much of what Didi told her. She internalized the idea that she was frail, helpless, and in constant need of her mother's care. However, as she grew older, cracks began to form in Didi's web of lies. Gypsy started to question her illnesses, her dependence on her mother, and the world outside the confines of their home. This awakening was both liberating and terrifying. For someone who had been so thoroughly controlled, the prospect of independence was overwhelming. But as she began to uncover the truth, Gypsy's resentment toward Didi grew. The tipping point came when Gypsy discovered the internet. Through secret online interactions, she began to connect with people outside of her mother's control. This is where she met Nick Goshen, a man who would play a pivotal role in the tragic climax of their story. Their relationship, built on secrecy and rebellion, became a lifetime for Gypsy. For the first time, she had someone who listened to her, validated her feelings, and offered a way out, albeit a deeply flawed and violent one. This led to the events of 2015, when Gypsy and Nick plotted Didi's murder. The crime was as shocking as it was tragic. On June 9th, 2015, Nick entered their home and stabbed Didi to death while Gypsy hid in the bathroom. Afterward, the two fled, leaving behind a trail of evidence that would lead to their capture. When the details of Gypsy's abuse came to light, the public's reaction was one of shock and sympathy. Here was a young woman who had endured unimaginable abuse and, in her desperation, committed an unthinkable act to escape. At the time, Gypsy's story was framed as one of survival. She was seen as a victim of her mother's abuse and a failed system that allowed it to continue unchecked. The narrative painted Didi as the villain and Gypsy as the tragic hero. However, as more details emerged, the story became less clear-cut. Over time, cracks began to appear in Gypsy's narrative. Her actions, words, and now her memoir paint a more complicated picture, one that doesn't align neatly with the image of a victim. Instead, it reveals a young woman grappling with her past, her choices, and her place in a world where the lines between right and wrong are anything but clear. Gypsy's memoir claims to be her truth, but much of it reads as an attack on her late mother. This revelation feels unnecessary and vindictive. Why would Gypsy include such personal and unverifiable claims about her mother? It serves no purpose other than to tarnish Didi's reputation further, a reputation already stained by years of documented abuse. Gypsy also includes unsettling details about her relationship with her mother, such as their shared baths, sleeping arrangements, and TV habits. While these details might aim to highlight the controlling nature of Didi's behavior, they instead come across as invasive and uncomfortable for readers. Gypsy's memoir also delve into her planning of Didi's murder, detailing graphic fantasies that Nick Gaujon allegedly had about Didi. These include disturbing scenarios involving violence and sexual assault. Gypsy's willingness to share such explicit details feels unnecessary and exploitative, especially considering her stated goal of advocating for abuse survivors. How does describing such grotesque fantasies help her cause or honor her mother's memory? The public hasn't taken kindly to Gypsy's memoir or her recent actions. During a live session hosted by content creator Sam Morbid, Gypsy was called out for disrespecting her mother in the book and on social media. Panelists questioned her decision to share only negative aspects of Didi's life while profiting off their tragic story. Interestingly, Gypsy denied being a part of the live chat, claiming he was an imposter. This deflection only added fuel to the fire, as viewers felt she avoided addressing legitimate criticism. What are your thoughts on this? Has Gypsy crossed the line with her memoir and public behavior, or is she justified in telling her side of the story? Let me know in the comments, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into stories like this one.